Investigators were back at the Nancy Guthrie home today with the most visible activity we've seen in days.
The FBI interrogation of Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law just proved everything, and it wasn't even close. Today, there's kind of a potential breakthrough that authorities could use for their investigation. A traced phone call at 2:47 a.m. caught his voice coordinating the kidnapping. Text messages spanning 3 weeks mapped out every detail of the abduction. His own laptop, wiped 3 days before his arrest, still held searches for how long an elderly woman can survive without her heart medication. But here's what makes this interrogation unlike anything you've ever seen. For the first 90 minutes, this man sat across from 2 FBI agents in his pajamas, performing the worried family member so convincingly you'd almost believe him. Almost. Then the lead agent pressed play on that recording, and you can watch in real time on camera. The exact second his face goes gray, his hands start shaking, and 6 hours of psychological collapse begins. Every lie, every pivot, every failed excuse captured on footage that was never supposed to go public, but it did. And it proved everything. The performance. The footage opens cold. 5:30 a.m. Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law is escorted into a stark FBI interview room. Hair uncombed, eyes swollen, still in the clothes he slept in, but already performing. Already projecting theatrical confusion, blinking under the lights like a man who couldn't possibly fathom why federal agents just dragged him out of bed. 2 agents sit across from him. Lead interrogator, Special Agent Russell Dante, 23-year veteran, FBI Violent Crimes Division. Known internally for one thing, breaking suspects who think they're smarter than everyone in the room. His partner, a younger agent from the Bureau's Behavioral Analysis Support Unit, barely speaks for the entire 6 hours, but his pen never stops moving. Every word, every flinch, every micro-expression documented. Here's the catch. Agent Dante reads the Miranda warnings and the son-in-law waves them off like a parking ticket. No hesitation, no request for a moment to think. He declines. An attorney with the casual arrogance of a man who has already decided he'll outmaneuver 2 federal investigators and walk out before lunch. That decision made in under 3 seconds destroyed his life. His opening act is polished. I have absolutely no idea why I'm here. This is insane. I would never hurt Nancy. She's my mother-in-law. I love her like my own mother. Hands flat on the table, steady eye contact, every word rehearsed, every gesture calculated. He'd clearly spent time preparing for this moment. What he didn't prepare for was Russell Dante. When agents asked him to walk through the evening, Nancy disappeared. He delivered his story with the kind of consistency that only comes from repetition. Nancy came for dinner. They played card games, her favorite, the same one she'd been playing since her daughters were children. She was in great spirits. He volunteered to drive her home around 9:45, walked her to the front door, waited until he heard the lock click, drove away. He added granular details to build credibility. What Nancy wore, what she ate, how she laughed, telling a story about her late husband during dessert. The woman who carried a framed photo of her grandchildren in her purse everywhere she went. Enjoying her last evening feeling safe. Surrounded by family she trusted completely, including the man sitting across from Agent Dante right now. And get this, for 90 full minutes, the son-in-law maintained total composure. Zero nervousness. He even asked agents how the investigation was going, playing the concerned relative eager to help rather than the man who orchestrated her abduction. Dante let him talk. Let him repeat the story. Let him grow more confident with each retelling because Dante wasn't gathering information anymore. He was building a runway, giving this man every opportunity to lock himself into a version of events that was about to be demolished by a single audio recording. What happened next changed the temperature of that room in 4 seconds flat. The phone call, 90 minutes in. The son-in-law is leaning back, almost relaxed. Agent Dante signals his partner without breaking eye contact with the suspect. The younger agent produces a laptop and audio equipment, sets them on the table. No explanation. Dante's demeanor shifts instantly. The conversational warmth drains from his voice. He leans forward. 7 words. I want you to listen very carefully. The son-in-law's reaction. Mild curiosity, a flicker of amusement, even as if he's genuinely interested in whatever the FBI thinks they have. That amusement lasted 4 seconds. Then the speakers filled the room with his own voice. The recording is a trace call from a burner phone to the son-in-law's personal cell at 2:47 a.m. The kidnapper is on that recording telling him NY's condition is deteriorating. The ransom plan has failed. They're debating what to do with her now that everything has spiraled beyond recovery. And the son-in-law isn't listening passively. He's directing, discussing logistics, referencing details about NY's captivity that only someone running the operation would know. Now, pay attention to this next part. The physical transformation on that footage is something that once you see, you can never unsee. The color drains from his face in real time, not a figure of speech. His skin goes from normal to gray in seconds. His hands steady on that table for over an hour start trembling so violently the camera picks it up from 6 feet away. His body recoils backward, the confident lean gone, replaced by the posture of a man trying to disappear into his chair. The recording ends. Silence swallows the room. 3 seconds. Dante lets the silence press down like a physical weight. Then he breaks it. That's your voice, isn't it? Denial. That doesn't sound like me. His voice cracks on the word me, but the weakness in every syllable betrays him. He knows. They know. The camera knows. Dante plays the recording again, this time pausing at specific moments, isolating statements that prove coordination. Each pause is surgical. Each one strips away another layer of the performance. The son-in-law's breathing changes visibly, shallow, rapid, like someone fighting the urge to be sick. He scrambles. The call was about something else entirely. Business matters, a personal situation with his cousin Marcus that investigators are misinterpreting. Dante let that explanation hang just long enough to make the son-in-law believe it might work. Then he reached for the folder, the text messages. The second agent drops a thick folder on the table, heavy. Inside, printed copies of every text message exchanged between the son-in-law's phone and Marcus's phone, spanning the 3 weeks before Nancy disappeared through the night she was taken. Agent Dante reads them aloud, slowly, deliberately, sliding each page across the table so the son-in-law can see his own words in black ink. Thursday night works best. Her routine is predictable. You'll need to disable the doorbell camera first thing. I'll tell you exactly where it is. The back door is the weak point. Front door has too much security. She takes sleeping pills around 10 p.m. Give it an hour after that. Stay with me here. These aren't vague messages open to interpretation. They reference NY's specific routine, her home layout, her vulnerability window, her medication schedule. The woman who laughed at dinner telling stories about her late husband who trusted this man to drive her home safely, reduced to a target profile in his own text messages. The son-in-law's face tells the whole story, that slow, sickening realization that every text he sent while planning this crime had been recovered, preserved, and was now being read back to him in a federal building. You can see the exact moment on the footage where his jaw goes slack, where the man who had an answer for everything suddenly has nothing. But here's the deal. He tried, claimed his phone was hacked. Someone else sent those messages to frame him. Agent Dante didn't blink. Cell tower records placed the phone at locations matching the son-in-law's verified whereabouts when each message was sent. His workplace, his home, restaurants where credit card receipts confirmed his presence. The timestamps align with his daily routine in ways physically impossible for a remote hacker to replicate. He pivoted again. Marcus fabricated the messages, spoofed them somehow. That crumbled too. The messages exist on Marcus's phone, on the carrier's servers, on the son-in-law's own device, and in cloud backups that the FBI's cyber forensics unit confirmed are authentic and completely unaltered. 4 independent sources all matching perfectly. The man who strutted into this room is gone. What's sitting there now is someone watching his life disintegrate in real time, and the text messages weren't even the worst of it. If you're following this case, subscribe now, because what the FBI found on his laptop next is the detail that turns this from kidnapping into something far worse. The laptop. This is where it changes. Despite the son-in-law running a commercial data wiping program on his laptop 3 days before his arrest, FBI Digital Forensics Division specialists recovered everything. Every search, every query, every digital fingerprint he thought he'd erased. Agent Dante reads the recovered entries from a printed forensic report. His voice is flat, clinical. The younger agent's pen stops moving for the first time in 4 hours. He just stares at the table, searches for how to kidnap someone without leaving evidence. Queries about anonymous Bitcoin ransom payments, research into how long elderly individuals can survive without prescribed medications, the same medications Nancy Guthrie takes every morning and every night. The same medications she didn't have when she was taken from the home this man mapped out in his text messages. But here's where it gets worse. Methods for disposing of remains in desert locations. Comparisons between sentencing for kidnapping versus murder. And the most chilling entry, a search conducted 72 hours before Nancy disappeared. Whether accomplices receive lesser sentences if the victim dies during captivity. Read that again. He wasn't just planning a kidnapping. He was planning for the possibility, maybe the intention, that Nancy wouldn't survive it. The woman who carried photos of her grandchildren everywhere she went. He was researching how to get away with her death before she was even taken. The searches spanned 3 weeks. General research escalating into specific operational planning, disabling doorbell cameras, bypassing residential alarm systems, finding accomplices willing to commit crimes for cash, all from the same device where forensic specialists found searches for NY's medication schedule and home security system. The son-in-law's defense: he was researching a crime novel. Dante shut that down in 3 sentences. No manuscript files, no notes, no outlines, not a single document suggesting any creative writing project had ever existed on that machine. Just search after search after search, each one more specific, each one inching closer to the operational blueprint of what eventually happened to Nancy Guthrie. The son-in-law finally tried invoking his Fifth Amendment right to silence. Too late. 3 hours of recorded lies, contradictions, and failed explanations already preserved on camera. The damage catastrophic, irreversible, but the evidence wasn't done with him. What agents revealed about his finances explained not just how he planned this, but why he was desperate enough to do it in the first place: following the money. 3 hours in, agents shifted to motive, and what they laid out painted the portrait of a man drowning so completely he convinced himself destroying an 84-year-old woman was his only way to the surface. 3 devastating details from the FBI's Financial Crimes Analysis Unit. That's all it took. First, total financial collapse. Checking account overdrawn by thousands. Credit cards maxed. Payments months behind. Mortgage in default with foreclosure threatened within 60 days. Combined debts exceeding $250,000 against income that barely covered monthly expenses. Second, unexplained cash withdrawals totaling $30,000 in the 3 weeks before Nancy vanished. When asked where the money went, the son-in-law's answers shifted like sand. Business expenses, then home repairs, then a blank stare. And the admission he simply couldn't remember. $30,000 gone. No explanation. And this is the part that changes everything. NY's existing will left her multi-million-dollar estate split equally between her 2 daughters. If Nancy died before changing that document, Annie, the son-in-law's wife, would inherit approximately $2 million marital property shared with her husband. Every debt erased, every creditor silenced, every problem solved with a single inheritance check. But Nancy had already scheduled an appointment with her attorney to execute a revised will, one that would dramatically reduce Annie's share. That appointment was days away. The son-in-law knew about it. Agents confirmed he'd overheard Nancy discussing the changes at a family dinner. The same dinner where she laughed telling stories about her late husband. The same dinner where she trusted her son-in-law enough to let him drive her home. He wasn't just broke, he was watching a $2 million lifeline disappear. Every day brought Nancy one step closer to that attorney's office, one step closer to signing a document that would eliminate his only escape from financial ruin. The desperation wasn't just financial anymore, it was existential, and the clock was running out. The financial trail explained the why. What happened next in that room revealed the how. And it started with the son-in-law's psychological defenses finally shattering completely. The breaking point, 4.5 hours in. The footage shows a man physically unraveling, slumped posture, visible exhaustion, hands that won't stop shaking. The confident innocence from hour 1 is gone, replaced by the hollow expression of someone who has run out of lies and knows it. Agent Dante recognizes the moment, shifts tactics completely. The confrontational pressure vanishes. Something warmer takes its place, something more dangerous. Look, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen a lot of people in your situation. Things start as one thing and spiral into something you never intended. Maybe you just wanted to scare Nancy, get her to reconsider the will changes. Maybe you thought Marcus would hold her for a day or two and let her go once she agreed. Then Dante leans forward, drops his voice. But right now, Nancy is out there somewhere. She's 84 years old. She doesn't have her heart medication. She doesn't have her blood pressure pills. She has a framed photo of her grandchildren in her purse that she carries everywhere. And she's alone without anyone who cares about her. You can stop that suffering right now in this room. Here's the catch. The rigid defensiveness cracks. His eyes fill with tears for the first time in 4.5 hours. And then the first real admission, small but seismic. I knew Marcus was having financial problems. I gave him some money to help out. How much? Maybe $20,000. One answer. That's all it took to contradict everything. He'd claimed not to remember where the cash went. Now he's admitting $20,000 went directly to the man who physically kidnapped Nancy. The financial link between orchestrator and accomplice established in the suspect's own words. And that crack in the wall was about to become a complete collapse. The collapse. Total denial. Dead. The son-in-law pivoted to his final strategy, admitting a connection to Marcus while insisting his cousin acted alone. Marcus was desperate, unstable, must have independently planned the kidnapping using information overheard at family gatherings. Agent Dante let him build this narrative for several minutes, nodded along, took notes, gave every indication the story was being taken seriously. Then he dismantled it with a single sentence. We have Marcus in the next room, and he's telling us something very different. The blood left the son-in-law's face for the second time that morning. Marcus says the son-in-law approached him with the plan, laid the whole thing out, the timeline, the entry point, when Nancy would be most vulnerable, offered him $50,000 to take her and hold her until she died without her medications or until ransom was collected. He gave agents specifics, the restaurant where they met to plan, the parking lot where cash was handed over, instructions about NYE's home. He couldn't possibly know unless the son-in-law personally told him. He even knew which sleeping pills Nancy takes and what time she takes them. That's not information a man picks up from casual family conversation. Stay with me here. Criminals almost always assume their accomplices will stay silent rather than cooperate. That assumption is almost universally wrong when federal charges enter the picture. When Marcus realized he was facing decades in a federal prison, not state, federal loyalty evaporated in hours. Self-preservation won, it always does. Additional evidence piled on. Security camera footage from a restaurant showing the two men meeting privately multiple times before Nancy vanished. Witness statements from staff who overheard discussions about a job and taking care of a problem. Financial records proving promised payments beyond the $30,000 already delivered. Cornered completely, the son-in-law attempted one final maneuver, a carefully worded partial confession designed to minimize legal exposure. The kidnapping discussions were hypothetical. He may have mentioned details about NY's routine, but never explicitly told Marcus to take her. Dante didn't need a long response. He pointed to the 2:47 a.m. phone call. A man who's surprised by a crime doesn't receive calls from the perpetrator discussing the victim's condition. A man who's surprised doesn't talk logistics about a failed ransom plan. A man who's surprised doesn't ask what to do with an 84-year-old woman who's running out of time. And a man who's surprised doesn't know which medication she needs to stay alive. The footage captures the exact moment the son-in-law realizes no version of this story ends with him walking free. Every lie cataloged, every pivot documented, every attempt to minimize met with evidence that made his position worse. And somewhere down the hallway, Marcus was filling in every gap the physical evidence couldn't reach. 6 hours. That's how long it took for a man who walked into that room believing he was the smartest person in it to completely unravel under the weight of his own lies. And the most disturbing part of this entire interrogation, not the evidence, not the searches, not the phone call, it's the fact that across 6 hours and dozens of opportunities, the son-in-law never once expressed genuine concern for Nancy. Not once. Every tear was for himself. Every emotional moment was about his consequences, his future, his collapsing life. The 84-year-old woman who carried photos of her grandchildren in her purse and laughed at her own dinner table the night she was taken. She was never more than a dollar sign to him. What Marcus told agents about those first 48 hours after Nancy was taken left hardened investigators unable to speak. That interrogation footage is next, and the question everyone in that building was asking whether Nancy Guthrie was still alive when they finally found her. Subscribe now because what comes next is worse.